There's so many bold theories and interesting things that people discuss out here for the chance to get an upgrade in Duelist Nexus. Alright, to the 34% of you that have not smashed the ever-living crap out of that subscribe button, smash it so you guys don't miss out on more awesome content. So there's an active theory that I've been told by a couple people that they think that there's going to be some Altergeist support coming in Duelist Nexus. Now, the reason for this is we've touched on the sub-characters and then the rivals, per se. So the whole first block was we did all the main characters, Yugi, Jaden, all of them, did the power-ups. And as we were going through there, you would notice that we would be doing like Kaiba support, power-ups to a lot of the rivals. So where do we go after the rivals? Well, every other character tended to have other characters that weren't like so much main characters, but they were involved within the story that typically, you could view them as like good side characters. I'd almost say like Taya Gardner, Alexis Rose. These would be good examples of these characters that were actively involved with said main characters, but I can't really... It's interesting because I don't think we can put Akiza in the same category as this because she already got her upgrade for her dragon, but nonetheless here, it's an actually interesting theory that if we're going to start heading down, the branch pipeline here for these other heroes, that you've got to start to kind of wonder, what can we actually do for this? And I think it's a very interesting idea, actually, especially since we didn't get a new mechanic or anything like that announced, that we can start touching the other characters and start accessing their cards. It definitely seems like an interesting method of things, and that means we can get some... I don't even remember what Taya even played in the show. It was like Happy Lover, some shenanigans. You can get Tristan support too, for all you know, and still not a sign of any armor monsters whatsoever. Maybe someday we will see those cards, but it's one big thing. Now, I kind of want to give a shout out here to Infernoble Knights. Now, what's very interesting about the Infernoble Knights is when you kind of take a look at some of how these are structured, a lot of them are fire-based, and that's very interesting because we have the Fire Duelist pack coming up here. Now, by the time Duelist Nexus drops, you'll be, a month and a half, 2 months off from this. Now, I'm very curious about this because I've seen certain Infernoble Knights start to spike in price. I don't know if that's like a correlation to anything, or if there's something kind of crazy happening, or people just believe out here in this, but I think the pieces are starting to line up that if we're seeing fire support coming down the line, maybe this won't be a Duelist Nexus thing, but this definitely seems like it could be something in a future set here after Duelist Nexus, which would put that at our August block set, where they actually go look at Infernoble Knights and give some consideration for fire power-ups, because Konami is very notorious about when a Duelist pack comes along that they want to provide some sort of additional power-up via a core set for that theme, all right, or just kind of something to go around it. Maybe it ends up being a generic fire card. I don't know. Blaster would be a perfect candidate to meet that requirement of a generic card, something that we can shift on back here, kind of take a step back and be like, like there is a possibility. I don't know for sure. But the fact that Infernoble Knights don't meet the criteria for what's coming out of the Fire Duelist pack, but it is a Fire Duelist pack nonetheless. So this feels like one of those themes that they would grab and try to sprinkle a little bit of support into a set. I don't know how many cards it would be, but Konami's followed this pattern before. It's definitely something that they could do here. Now, this is one, my friend sat down the other day and he's like, so we have Wild Survivors coming out. He's like, we have Dinosaur support coming out. And he was like, what do you think the odds are of Evil Zor actually getting support here? And I had to think to myself for a second. If we have an entire side set coming dedicated to dinosaurs here, then Evilzors should be up on the list for an upgrade / something to feed to them. Now, whether or not, once again, this ends up being in Duelist Nexus meets the criteria for this along the time chart here, because you release Wild Survivors, you do something with dinosaurs, whether or not it be generic or whatnot, and then you drop more dinosaur support in the next set. I don't know. You see, when you look at dinosaurs, you think of like, yeah, Chad Ultimate Conductor and all this other stuff, but you don't really look at a lot of the other cards, and you don't really see like a lot of theme formation around them. It's just kind of been like generic dinosaur deck for so long. So to see that, one of the most forgotten themes out here, the Digimon archetype, actually has, definitely missed out on something, I think that this would be cool. This is definitely one of my personal huge appeals out of this, and I hope that with Wild Survivors that they do look at this deck. And honestly, I mean, Evilzor does very much fit the theme. All right, like maybe not so much within the core of the set itself, but like in a main set to make you entice, like, ooh, some dinosaur support. Technically, Evilzors are, some big Wild Survivors out here, to say the least. So definitely something on the agenda that I think a lot of people are going to kind of look at here and go, what's going on here? Definitely something big. Next up is Purrely support. Now, this was an interesting topic of discussion too, because when you look at your adventure support, they got I believe all of that stuff got 2 waves of support. We actually just ran through the first wave of support in the most recent set, where they got the second little cat, and it was a huge success. I guarantee you that Konami has definitely taken note that the OCG is such a fan of this deck. I was reading a Twitter post from, one of the former world champions. I don't remember who it was, but they were talking about how Purrely feels a lot like Sky Striker in the way that the deck plays, and it creates like some interesting plays. I mean, being able to make a huge cat that is unaffected by your opponent's activated effects is bonkers insane. And then to top things off, it gets the ability to draw like 3 cards during the standby phase, which then can draw you into like Ash Blossoms, Effect Veilers, while you're sitting on this huge cat that your opponent literally can't out. Alright, that in itself is something absolutely interesting at the end of the day, and I am very curious to know if Duelist Nexus will be the point that they drop more support, or if it'll be in a future set. But because we've seen before that they'll do 2 rounds of this stuff. They'll go like, all right, cool, we'll go ahead and drop something here, and then we can go ahead and drop something else along the way into here as well. So whether or not it's a hit or miss, maybe it's too early for this, but actually all of the themes from that set, Menkanko, Rescue Ace got the shaft on the last line of support. I don't know what Konami was thinking, not giving them something, but they definitely need some more to kind of get powered up there. So definitely something on my agenda that's coming there. And then, of course, the Infinite Legacy support. If you've noticed in a lot of these sets, Konami's been taking a lot of time to power up a lot of side stuff. Good examples of this where, we got Plunder Patrol. Like, even if a theme only gets like 1 to 2 new cards, those power-ups have tended to be really good. Even so much going down to like giving these decks 1 to 2 new cards has been no shocker, alright? Like, Konami knows what they're doing when they're looking at a lot of this stuff, and I do think that it is important to kind of take note of these Legacy support power-ups, alright? I think Legacy support has been a lot more common in the last couple of sets than it was previously, and that's actually kind of a nice thing, because it means that, whatever deck you play, whether or not it's up on the current power block or something like that, but you have been getting new support very, very slowly here. So whether or not it's a card or 2, how many Legacy support archetypes are missing? Something like we're missing an Ojama, all the way back in the old days here for something like that. So that's something really, really big to consider here, for the fact that there's just so many doors to open up. But whatever the Legacy support ends up being in this set, whatever power up it ends, however many cards it ends up being, it will be something pretty interesting, as I said, because they've been doing pretty good in terms of powering up all sorts of goodies at this point. So My question to you is, what are you expecting out of Duelist Nexus so far? Please leave a comment down below. Tell me what you guys think. I'm genuinely very intrigued to see kind of what happens going forward here. And I will see your beautiful faces back here later in the day, guys. Peace out. Patrons, thank you.
Thank you so much for watching. Check out these other videos.